What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another FPL Seal video. Today we have a Man City tactical video. Now, if you do enjoy today's video, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel to help me grow this community. We've had a great growth of subscribers in December, and I'd like to continue that and reach 200 subscribers before the end of the year. That'd be fantastic. But let's get into the video. So, Pep Guardiola is the manager of Manchester City. He played for Barcelona, Brescia and Roma during his playing career. And when he started his coaching career, he started with Barcelona B. And then, of course, went up to Barcelona, won the Champions League and La Liga. And he was coach of one of the best teams the world had seen at that point. Bayern and Man City, of course, came after that. So he's won the La Liga, he's won Bundesliga, he's won the Premier League. And, of course, the Champions League, among many other medals. And he is undoubtedly one of the best managers in the world right now. So how do Manchester City set up? Well, they set up in a 4-3-3 formation. And in possession, that usually takes the shape of 2-3-5. So it's usually, and I will show you guys a little later how that actually looks. They have a really big squad, so there's regular rotation of minutes. So the squad you see in the photograph right there, it's basically just what some people consider the strongest Man City squad. It's, you could argue that Mahrez is in there, Gundogan's on the bench, and that Bernardo's in Gundogan's position. You could argue Foden's on the right wing, and Grealish makes the left wing, and of course the centre backs, you can argue about that as well. But this is just a team that I think is very likely to start most games for them, and these are the players that have played plenty of minutes in the Premier League this season. Now, they can play in many different positions, like Foden can play, in that right wing or the left wing, or as a false nine. Bernardo can play as a central attacking midfielder, or a left winger, or a right winger. Cancelo, he can move positions, play right back, left back. They could possibly test him a little further up the pitch. There's a lot of ways they can go, and I think that is something that's really strong for Manchester City. There's a lot of ways they can go, a lot of ways they can attack, and a lot of ways they can defend. Now, the team stats. So, after 14 games in the Premier League, they have had 247 shots, and that means that they are the top team in that statistic. They are also joint first for shots on target, having had 88 shots. Now, in the box, they've had 167 shots, and they are second there. With big chances, they have had 47, and they are the best team in the league for that. Now, for XG, they are the best team in the league with 32.49, so they should have scored the most goals. And they have scored the most goals, although they have been overperforming their XG. So they've been taking chances that people maybe didn't expect them to take. And then, of course, expected goals conceded, 14.9. That's second best in the league behind Arsenal. And then goals conceded, they're third there with 14 goals behind Arsenal and Newcastle, who have 11. So now to talk about how the team sets up. So, as you can see, it's a 4-3-3 formation. So, let's say Akanji has the ball and they're in possession. So, Rodri over here in the middle of the park. Cancelo will drop into the middle of the pitch. Kyle Walker will do the exact same thing. Akanji will stay back and Laporte will stay back. Bernardo and Foden can hug the touchline, while Gundogan and De Bruyne will run into the zones right here. So when I went to the Brentford Manchester City game before the break, I noticed how Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne were actually swapping positions regularly, trying to move into this position right here, into this zone. So that was apparently something maybe Guardiola thought was a weak point in the Brentford team, where they could just get at them through this position. Didn't work out that well. They didn't score any goals from that position specifically. If I remember correctly, Foden's goal came from a corner kick, but that's besides the point. That's also, it's a good example of how they try and utilize that space. So they try and maneuver around. If Gundogan couldn't make it through, he'll just move back and they'll put someone else there like De Bruyne. He'll start making the run in. Possibly Cancelo will go outside and Foden will cut inside, make the run here. And this is very similar to the way Arsenal play, which, of course, like I said in that video, if you haven't seen that video, of course, in that video I did say that Mikel Arteta was very much influenced by Pep Guardiola. So when you look at the attacking build-up for Man City, it's 100%, visible the similarities between Arsenal and Man City. So this season they have Erling Haaland, who's absolutely incredible. And instead of having a false nine, Foden was usually in that position. He would track back and they would just have kind of two false nines instead. This season they just have an actual 9, and what they usually do is, let's say Gundogan has the ball in this position, Haaland will come, receive the ball, and when the player is going to step up, Gundogan will continue his run into the box, and Haaland will pass the ball through for Gundogan to score. We saw this, a good example of this, when they faced Bournemouth earlier in the season, where they just did a 1-2 and Gundogan was through. Now, there's many ways they can do this. Naturally, they can also just come up the flank, pass the ball into the box, and Haaland usually is just waiting there to tap it in. So that's why he's getting a lot of chances and a really high XG and all that good stuff. Last season, when they didn't have Erling Haaland, what they used to do was basically sit back with Kyle Walker and form a back 3, and then they'd have like a midfield 2, and they'd still have their players right here, but their false 9 would drop down into the midfield and it would kind of become a 3-3-4. So yeah, Foden or whoever was there dropped down, but this season Haaland stays up a little bit more. Yes, he can track back a little bit, but he can also, just stay up front, receive the ball in the space himself. So when they are trying to defend, they usually just take up the positions of Rodri dropping in between the centre backs. If they need to, of course, Laporte can assist Cancelo, and then Akanji can assist Kyle Walker if needed, and the rest can kind of just contribute to the space. It's usually Haaland who stays up, and Foden and Bernardo kind of track back to try and help. But oftentimes this isn't needed, and they can just continue with the midfield 3 up here because they are quite solid. And of course, like 60 to 70% of the game they have the ball, so it's only like 20, 30, sometimes 40% of the game that they actually have to defend in this manner without the ball. So that is why Pep Guardiola, of course, wants to have the possession, based play, because when you have the ball, you control the game. It's a well-known fact. So now we're going to go through the defense, how their numbers look. Well, in the discipline area, 11 yellow cards, 1 red card, 56 fouls, 21 offsides. I think it's fairly minimal. I mean, Arsenal had more yellow cards. They had the same amount of red cards, and they have a lot more fouls. I think the discipline of the squad is quite decent, especially if you compare it to the past years. But I also think it kind of shows how good Man City are, because they make very few mistakes. So usually when a player has to make a foul that draws like a yellow card or a red card, it usually means he's made a mistake. But Pep Guardiola and his side are so good that they haven't been making that many mistakes. Now, of course, in the other stats, I mean, they've got 6 clean sheets, 14 goals conceded, and that, for the math geniuses, is 1 per match. Ederson has had to make 25 saves. They made fewer tackles than Arsenal. They have had to block fewer shots. Everything like this is lower than what Arsenal had in the other video, except for, of course, errors leading to goal. That's just 1, and own goals is 1 as well, as like Arsenal have. But I think it's just very interesting to compare these stats with the Arsenal team. And if you want to do that, then you can look at the other video and just compare. Now, if we go into the attack, we can see that they made 9,550 passes. And now passes per match is on average 682 passes. That is quite much, but 89% of the pass is accurate. So, hitting their same players, hitting the same teammates and all that. So that's very nice. It's good to see. They have the biggest goal tally of 40 goals, and that means that per match they're scoring 2.8 goals, kind of 2.9, so basically 3 goals per match, which is a lot. They've had plenty of shots on target, of course, like we saw in the stats previously. They rank highly in the league in all of these areas, and they generally have a really good attack. And now for some FPL chat. So if you're going to go for a Man City defender, without, Cancelo, he is 7.4 million. I think I would target him if you have the money. If you do not, I'd probably go Akanji. He has had 8 appearances and he hasn't been subbed on in a single game. So usually it's just either he starts the game or he just doesn't come on at all. So that's quite decent for 5 million. Just start him and then just drop to the bench for you if you don't need it, if he doesn't play. But his XGI is also 0.9, which is not that much worse than Cancelo's 1.7. So I think it's very interesting to look at these two numbers. For 5 million, you could save 2.4 million if you go for Akanji, and I think it might be worth the savings. Neither of them have created any real big chances, which is very interesting. And then finally, we have the players to target in FPL for the attacking phase. So Erling Haaland, 12.2 million, De Bruyne, 12.5, and Foden at 8.3 are the players that I'm comparing here. Now, it's kind of unfair to put Foden in with these guys because they are insanely good and their stats are much better than his, but they're also 4 million more expensive. I don't think we need to talk about Haaland that much. He is above the other two in all other stats except for game time, assists, and big chances created. De Bruyne edges that, and as you can see, he has been subbed on once, De Bruyne, and once Erling Haaland, but Foden has been subbed on 3 times. But that means he started 11 games, and that's pretty good in my opinion. So for 8.3 million, I don't think you should overlook Foden. I mean, he has had decent shots. He's had, shots in the box, looks good. 22 there, a lot more than Kevin De Bruyne. Erling Haaland, of course, 49 is insane. But, I think he looks really good, Foden, and I don't think you should overlook him. The other two look brilliant as well, and I would not be against a triple up on them, although Man City defense is really, really good. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel to help us grow this community. I do have more tactical videos planned, and I've already begun working on the next one. I hope you enjoyed it, but until next time, goodbye.